Welcome to Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig, where we dive into the most captivating tales of intrigue, chaos, and the occasional questionable decision. I'm your host, Roger Heilig, your guide on this roller coaster ride through the notorious and the enigmatic. Before we unravel today's juicy subject, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll. How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe. If you're obsessed with history's greatest whodunits and spine-chilling mysteries, this book is an absolute must-read. Available now on Amazon and Audible, it's your golden ticket to a world where conspiracy theories and historical facts weave an unforgettable tapestry. Alright folks, buckle up because today's episode is a wild one. We're diving headfirst into the turbulent waters of Lindsay Lohan's legal saga. Yes, the same Lindsay who stole our hearts in The Parent Trap and dazzled us in Mean Girls. But beyond the red carpet and blockbuster hits lies a complex tale of missteps, legal entanglements, and public scrutiny. We'll touch on her meteoric rise to fame, only to be followed by a series of unfortunate events that put her under the harsh spotlight of the law. From DUIs to probation violations, we'll break it down so even the most tabloid-averse listener can follow along. In true Restless Killers and Mysteries fashion, we're going to explore not just the events but also the impact they had on Lindsay's career and the public's perception of her. Trust me folks, you don't want to miss this. So grab your favorite snack, settle into your comfiest chair, and let's dive into the whirlwind world of Lindsay Lohan's legal troubles. Lindsay Lohan, the Hollywood darling. Lindsay Lohan. Remember when she was the darling of Hollywood, a wonderkind with fiery red hair and an infectious grin? Let's rewind and stroll down memory lane to a time when Lindsay seemed to have the world at her feet. Born on July 2, 1986, in New York City, Lindsay began her career as a child model at the tender age of 3. By the time she was 10, she had already appeared in over 60 television commercials, including famous brands like The Gap, Wendy's, and Jell-O. But her big break came in 1998 when she landed the dual roles of Hallie Parker and Annie James in Disney's remake of The Parent Trap. Suddenly, Lindsay wasn't just another freckled face. She was a bona fide movie star. Her performance was nothing short of stellar, charming audiences with her role as the mischievous twins trying to reunite their divorced parents. This film didn't just put her on the map, it put her in the hearts of millions. What made Lindsay irresistible was not just her acting chops but a certain magnetic charm. She had an endearing mix of spunk, sass, and sincerity that made her stand out among her peers. Hollywood quickly took notice. By 2003, she was back on the big screen with another hit, Freaky Friday, starring alongside Jamie Lee Curtis. The movie was a commercial success, cementing Lindsay's reputation as a box office draw, and proving she was no one-hit wonder. From there, Lindsay's career was like a rocket shooting through the stratosphere. She starred in 2004's Mean Girls, the now iconic teen comedy written by Tina Fey. Mean Girls was not just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. Lindsay's portrayal of Katie Heron, the new girl navigating the treacherous waters of high school hierarchy, resonated with audiences far and wide. Quotable lines from the movie entered the lexicon, and Lindsay's star power was solidified. She'd become a household name. Lindsay's appeal was multifaceted. She had the beauty that the Hollywood machine loves to put on magazines, but she also had a down-to-earth vibe that made people feel like they could be her friend. This relatability was a huge part of her charm. She wasn't just the girl next door. She was the girl who could seamlessly transition from next door to center stage. And let's not forget her ventures into music. With albums like Speak, which debuted in 2004, Lindsay showed she had pipes to match her acting talents. Tracks like Rumors became teenage anthems, further broadening her appeal. She wasn't just an actress or a model or a singer, she was a full-fledged pop culture icon by her late teens. It wasn't just Lindsay's versatility that made her a star, it was her ability to bring a natural authenticity to whatever she did. In an industry often accused of being phony, Lindsay was real, raw, and genuine, and that's why fans adored her. So there you have it, the rise of Lindsay Lohan, Hollywood's one-time sweetheart. Little did we know that behind those infectious smiles and blockbuster hits, trouble was brewing, and Lindsay's world was about to take a sharp turn. But oh, what a glorious ascent it was, and how brightly she shined at the peak of her powers. Let's dive into the beginning of Lindsay Lohan's legal saga, a story that started with what has become a sadly familiar arc in young Hollywood, DUI, which stands for driving under the influence. For those of you who might not be aware, DUI is a serious offense. It means that someone has been caught operating a vehicle while impaired by alcohol or drugs. This isn't just some slap on the wrist, it's a major issue, because it endangers not only the driver but everyone around them. Picture someone steering a 2-ton hunk of metal while being unable to make sound decisions. Yeah, it's pretty scary. Lindsay's first known run-in with the law happened in May 2007. She was pulled over in Beverly Hills after she lost control of her Mercedes, jumping a curb and narrowly missing pedestrians. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But here's where things took a nosedive. When officers approached her, they noticed she had that telltale smell of alcohol on her breath and her speech was slurred. Testing revealed that her blood alcohol concentration was over the legal limit. And guess what? They also found a small amount of cocaine in the car. Talk about a double whammy. Public reaction was swift and merciless. Lindsay Lohan, the girl we saw growing up, from the lovable twin in The Parent Trap to the queen bee in Mean Girls, was suddenly the latest celebrity mugshot plastered all over tabloids and news channels. Right away, people started questioning her choices and her friends, not to mention her entire lifestyle. This was the beginning of a long and tumultuous public relationship with the legal system. Lindsay's troubles didn't stop there. Just 2 months after the first incident, in July 2007, she was arrested again for another DUI. This time, things got even stranger. Lindsay was involved in a car chase. Yes, you heard that right. A car chase, after an argument with the mother of her personal assistant. Can you imagine the headlines? Lindsay Lohan in wild car chase. It was almost too surreal to believe. But it happened. And once again, Lindsay was caught with a stash of cocaine in her possession. If her first DUI was a wake-up call, this second incident was a blaring alarm no one could ignore. Public sentiment began to shift dramatically. Fans who once adored her felt disappointment, and skepticism grew over her ability to stay on a productive path. Her image began to morph from that of a promising young actress to that of another Hollywood cautionary tale. The relentless media coverage didn't help, painting her in increasingly negative light. Paparazzi followed her every move, waiting for the next misstep as if it were some sordid reality TV show. Lindsay's battle with DUI charges didn't end there. Fast forward to 2012, and she was accused yet again. This time, she hit a pedestrian in New York City and fled the scene, although she claimed she wasn't aware she had struck anyone. By this point, Lindsay's legal trouble wasn't just a series of isolated incidents. It had become a recurring theme, overshadowing her career and everything she was working towards. So why is DUI such a serious matter? Well, for starters, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, about 30 people in the United States die in drunk driving crashes each day. Legal repercussions for DUI can include hefty fines, community service, mandatory drug and alcohol counseling, and even jail time. For celebrities like Lindsay Lohan, who live their lives under a microscope, these incidents are amplified, making the fall from grace all the more publicized and humiliating. Public reaction to Lindsay's serial legal troubles was a mix of concern and schadenfreude. People were genuinely worried for her well-being, but couldn't help but watch the train wreck unfold. Social media buzzed with every update, and late-night talk show hosts mined her struggles for punchlines. All the while, behind the spectacle, was a young woman clearly in crisis, struggling with issues far deeper than what the surface showed. And thus, the downward spiral had well and truly begun. From promising starlet to tabloid fodder, Lindsay Lohan's legal troubles serve not only as a stark warning about the dangers of DUI, but also about the punishing spotlight that accompanies fame. Probation? Now, if that's not a word you've heard tossed around in TV dramas and nightly news, let's break it down into something a bit more digestible. Think of probation as a second chance with a sprinkle of legal oversight. When someone is put on probation, it means they've been found guilty of a crime, but instead of staring at bars all day, they get to roam free, sort of. They're out, but under strict conditions that are set by the court. It's kind of like being grounded by a judge with some pretty serious rules to follow. For Lindsay Lohan, who seemed to collect probation terms like some folks collect stamps, these rules were almost as infamous as her roles in Mean Girls and Herbie Fully Loaded. So what exactly were these conditions she had to stick to? Well, for starters, she had to attend regular drug and alcohol education classes, because her legal issues usually had something to do with substance abuse. Then there were the mandatory rehab stints, court appearances, and, oh yes, let's not forget the community service hours. But here's where things get tangled. Like your earbuds after spending the night in your pocket. Lindsay had a knack for racking up probation violations. Picture this. A judge tells you to stay off of candy for a year, and you're caught in a candy store with chocolate smeared across your face. That's almost the sort of scenario Lindsay found herself in. Her violations ranged from missing mandatory sessions and failing drug tests, to not completing her community service on time. If we were keeping score, she would have been in serious trouble. One of her most notable violations came in 2009 when she failed to attend court-mandated alcohol education classes. It was like she missed class, and the teacher was a judge who could send her straight to detention, with iron bars involved. Each time she slipped, it made celebrity gossip gold. Headlines like Lohan skips class, faces more jail time became practically routine in showbiz tabloids and mainstream media alike. And who can forget the famous 2010 incident, where she missed a court hearing because, supposedly, her passport was stolen at the Cannes Film Festival. She dialed into the hearing and naturally, her excuse didn't fly well. The judge wasn't buying it, and next thing you know, Lindsay was wearing a scram bracelet. Think of it as a techno anklet that checks if you've been drinking. Spoiler, the bracelet went off at an MTV Movie Awards afterparty. As a cascade effect of each probation slip, legal beagles were constantly on her tail. This turned courtrooms into media circuses every time she made an appearance. Paparazzi camped out, legal analysts kept finding new angles to discuss, and talk show hosts weren't shy to crack jokes. Lindsay's life was on public display for every missed class or late community service hour. Let's talk about the legal consequences here. Every time Lindsay missed a mark, she faced the risk of her probation being revoked. In simple terms, probation revocation means, alright, we've had enough. Time to bring out the big guns, which, in Lindsay's case, sometimes meant short jail stints. Seeing her in handcuffs and orange jumpsuits became almost as iconic as her early film career. Remember the mix-up in 2011? When she was sentenced to 120 days in jail for violating probation only to serve it through home confinement because jails were overcrowded? It was like a reality TV series playing out in real time. The media, of course, had a field day. Lindsay's life was transformed from talented Hollywood teen queen to the poster child of what not to do. The public's perception flipped like a pancake. Instead of seeing her as the bubbly and talented actress she once was, people started to view her as a train wreck, except this train had no brakes and the track was lined with flashing cameras. It's almost Shakespearean if you think about it, except with less poetic monologues and more TMZ headlines. Each probation violation built onto her image of being reckless and irresponsible. The golden light she once stood in dimmed but didn't completely vanish. Each time she slipped, fell, and got back up, many couldn't help but root for her comeback, as improbable as it seemed. So, to sum this all up, probation was Lindsay's chance to keep her head above water amid a sea of legal troubles. But each violation, widely publicized and criticized, pulled her deeper into the abyss of public scrutiny and legal battles. Every court date, every headline became part of the Lindsay Lohan saga, a saga that even today keeps people tuned in, hoping for that miraculous comeback. Now, let's dive into the roller coaster of Lindsay Lohan's rehabilitation attempts. You see, rehab for Lindsay Lohan was almost as frequently newsworthy as her courtroom appearances. Rehab became a recurring theme in her life, making plenty of headlines and raising as many eyebrows. Lindsay's first trip to rehab came in January 2007 at the ripe age of 20. She checked into the Wonderland Center in Los Angeles after publicly announcing that she was dealing with addiction issues. This stint was voluntary, and she assured everyone it was just to get ahead of any bad habits. But as we all know, sometimes the first step is the hardest, and not always the last. By the time summer rolled around in 2007, Lindsay found herself in rehab again, this time at Promises in Malibu. You might remember Promises. It's famously luxurious and frequented by the rich and famous. This stint wasn't exactly a picnic, though. Lindsay had another run-in with the law, culminating in a DUI arrest in July of that year. This let the court step in, making rehab not just a choice but a mandate. Now, onto another rehab that became infamous, Cirque Lodge in Utah. Utah, known for its serene landscapes, a place Lindsay hoped would calm her turbulent life. This visit was spurred on after a second DUI and cocaine possession in the same year. Court-ordered, Lindsay entered a 3-month program. Interestingly, despite the beautiful backdrop, her legal troubles were not left behind. Utah was supposed to be her tranquil respite but turned into another pit stop in her troubled journey. 2007 wasn't done serving up lemons yet, and by October, Lindsay was required to spend time in a secure rehab for just 84 minutes, not exactly a life-changer. This short stint seemed almost surreal, as if it was more of a formality than a genuine attempt at healing. In subsequent years, she frequented rehab facilities so often that it became somewhat of a revolving door. Fast forward to 2010, and Lindsay trots off to the Betty Ford Clinic, another famous name in the rehabilitation world. This stint came after violating probation and failing a drug test. By now, it was clear that these were more than just bumps in the road. They were sinkholes. The Betty Ford Clinic also brought more drama, including an altercation with a staff member leading to yet more legal woes. If this were a TV show, it would get higher ratings than any of her movies at the time. This rehab attempt was a blend of voluntary and court-ordered, making it feel like Lindsay was trying to get better, but her demons were fighting back harder. In 2013, after her 6th rehab stint, Lindsay checked into Cliffside, Malibu. This was part of a plea deal to avoid jail time after, you guessed it, another run-in with the law. By this time, the cycle was painfully predictable. Legal trouble, court-mandated rehab, brief period of hoping for recovery, and then back to square one. What made these attempts unsuccessful? Well, rehab isn't a magic cure. It requires a genuine, deep-rooted desire to change and a supportive environment, both of which seemed elusive for Lindsay. There were too many instances where Lindsay left rehab early or didn't fully engage with the process. Coupled with the constant media scrutiny and her tumultuous personal life, it became hard, if not impossible, for her to truly reap the benefits of these programs. It's also worth mentioning that addiction is not a linear process. For anyone, public figure or private citizen, it takes multiple attempts, often over years, to make substantial progress. Lindsay's story, heavily cataloged by paparazzi, was scrutinized at every step, making each slip and fall publicly humiliating. Rehabilitation is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of healing. For Lindsay, it often seemed like another stage on which her life played out for the audience to see. This visibility certainly added pressure, and possibly detracted from some of the much-needed privacy and focus on self-improvement. So, all in all, despite multiple, sometimes extended, rehab attempts, Lindsay couldn't quite break free from the legal and addiction issues that plagued her. Each try was a hopeful step towards recovery, but turned into yet another chapter in the public seesaw that has been her life. Lindsay Lohan was once the golden girl of Hollywood. With her dazzling performances in movies like The Parent Trap and Mean Girls, she quickly became a beloved fixture in the entertainment industry. However, Lindsay's legal troubles significantly derailed her career and altered the public's perception of her. Let's start with her acting career. Once upon a time, Lindsay was the go-to actress for major teenage roles. She had charisma, talent, and a remarkable screen presence. But as her legal issues piled up, the offers began to dry up. Studios, fearing an unreliable star, began to pass on casting her in potential blockbusters. Let's not forget that Hollywood loves a good comeback story, but equally detests unpredictability. So when Lindsay started making headlines for all the wrong reasons, directors, producers, and marketers understandably grew hesitant. Consider the 2007 film Georgia Rule, in which Lindsay starred alongside Jane Fonda and Felicity Huffman. The production was plagued with issues due to Lindsay's frequent absences and tardiness, which were directly linked to her erratic behavior and legal battles of that time. This on-set behavior became so problematic that film studio executives wrote a letter to Lohan, chastising her for her unprofessional conduct. It was a public relations disaster and seriously impacted her standing in the industry. Her legal troubles didn't just affect her film roles. Endorsements started to evaporate. Lindsay had been the face of several major brands earlier in her career. The endorsement deals, which could have been worth millions, started disappearing as companies no longer wanted their brand associated with her tumultuous lifestyle. For instance, in 2006, she was reportedly set to endorse Vuitton, but that deal never came to fruition amid growing concerns about her reliability and public image. The shift in media portrayal was quite stark. Our sweet girl next door, Lindsay, was now being dubbed a party girl and troubled star. Tabloids had a field day documenting every mishap and court appearance. Remember the infamous mugshot lineup that became something of a public spectacle? Each booking photo told a story more sorrowful than the last, further cementing her fall from grace in the public eye. And let's not forget some specific projects that never saw the light of day, or underwent significant changes due to her legal woes. Lohan was once attached to star in and produce a biopic about literary icon Linda Lovelace, but those plans were scrapped, reportedly due to her unpredictable behavior and legal instability. Later on, she missed out on roles such as Jade in the Hangover sequel. Rumors swirled that her legal struggles and insurability were factors in these lost opportunities. Her role in The Canyons, a low-budget film by Paul Schrader, showed she still had acting chops, but its mixed reviews and limited release underscored how far she had fallen from her earlier career heights. Critics took note of her performance, with some praising her, but the stigma of her legal issues remained front and center. Public perception can be cruel, particularly when the media turns someone's life into a perpetual circus. Every probation violation, every courtroom appearance, these became chapters in the ongoing saga of Lindsay Lohan's troubled journey. Her forays into reality television with shows like Lindsay on the Oprah Winfrey Network were also an attempt to rehab her image, though they sometimes backfired by exposing more of her vulnerabilities. In summary, Lindsay Lohan's legal troubles made her a case study of how quickly one can fall from Hollywood darling to tabloid fodder. The loss of roles, endorsements, and a significant shift in media portrayal not only dented her career, but also redefined her public image. Yet through it all, Lohan remains a compelling figure, not just for the talent she showcased in her early years, but also for the stark cautionary tale her life has become. Just when we thought we had seen the last of Lindsay Lohan's escapades, she started making headlines again, this time for trying to reclaim her spot in the limelight. Now, let's talk about her bouts of resurgence and where she stands today. Lindsay's first significant comeback attempt came with the 2013 film The Canyons, an indie project directed by Paul Schrader. Despite the buzz, the film was a flop, and criticism was fierce. But Lilo wasn't ready to throw in the towel yet. She made a memorable appearance on Oprah Winfrey's network in the documentary series Lindsay, giving fans a raw look into her life post-rehab. It was part intervention, part confession, part publicity, and all around fascinating. Fast forward to 2014, and Lindsay was dipping her toes into the theater world with David Mamet's play Speed the Plough in London. Reviews were mixed, but critics acknowledged her efforts. It was a clear signal that she was willing to take risks and work hard to rebuild her career. However, her comeback hasn't been smooth sailing. Lindsay's life continued to have its ups and downs. Public sentiment swayed, sometimes rooting for her triumphant return, other times skeptical of yet another meltdown. Let's be honest, the internet has not been the kindest place for Lindsay, but she kept going. A significant change came in 2016 when Lindsay more or less disappeared from the Hollywood radar and made her way to Dubai. Yes, Dubai. She opted for a quieter life away from paparazzi lenses and tabloid headlines. Turns out, a little peace and quiet can go a long way. During these years, she's hinted at various projects like her beauty brand Saga and a lifestyle blog that didn't quite materialize, but showed her entrepreneurial spirit. Then came 2019, and Lindsay decided to venture into the world of reality TV once again with her show Lindsay Lohan's Beach Club on MTV. The show chronicled her attempts to launch a luxury beachfront resort in Mykonos, Greece. It was an interesting attempt to blend hospitality with reality drama, but fizzled out after one season. Still, it was clear Lindsay was pushing hard to relaunch her brand. As of today, Lindsay is taking baby steps towards a more stable career. She's recently made a return to acting with Netflix's upcoming holiday rom-com, Falling for Christmas, slated to release soon. The project has created quite a buzz, and might just be the wholesome comeback she needs. On a personal level, Lindsay seems to have found a more balanced lifestyle. Her social media now shows a life filled with family, friends, and a bunch of adorable pets. It appears she's striving for normalcy and slowly earning back public goodwill. Public sentiment has certainly softened, with many rooting for her comeback as an emblem of resilience. Lindsay Lohan's journey has been anything but ordinary. From Disney stardom to legal woes, from public trials to private tribulations, and now a cautious comeback, she's the epitome of a Hollywood survivor. While it's hard to predict what the future holds for Lindsay, it's clear that she's not willing to let her past define her. Here's hoping the next chapter of her life is filled with more joy, stability, and maybe, just maybe, a glittering return to Tinseltown. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig. We've taken quite a journey today through the highs and lows of Lindsay Lohan's life, from her meteoric rise to stardom as a Hollywood darling, to the many legal troubles that clouded her career. We dived into her early brushes with the law and those infamous DUIs that first shook the public image of a beloved young star. We saw how probation became more than just a legal term, turning into an almost constant headline as she struggled to adhere to its tough conditions. Time and again, she tried to rehabilitate herself, with numerous stints in rehab facilities, both court-mandated and voluntary. Yet those attempts often fell short, leaving us to wonder what could have been. Then, we delved into the harsh impact on her career and public perception. Lindsay lost roles, endorsements, and her once glowing media portrayal switched from Hollywood's beloved to a troubled star always under scrutiny. But through it all, it's impossible not to view her story as one of resilience. Despite numerous setbacks, Lindsay Lohan has made attempts at a comeback, striving to find a place for herself once again in the industry and in the hearts of the public. To all our listeners, I hope today's episode shed light on the cautionary tale that is Lindsay Lohan's life, but also the story of a woman who refuses to give up. So, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out our sponsor's book, Beyond the Grassy Knoll: How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe, available on Amazon and Audible. It's a fascinating read that I'm sure you'll enjoy. I'm Roger Heilig, and this has been Restless Killers and Mysteries. Until next time, keep curious and stay enthralled.